Hello there, Blue here, and I would like to welcome you to Wobbly Top's newest Speedpaint. This is our very special holiday episode starring Bradley, one of our new mysterious cats, and, of course, Bradley's little mouse buddy. I like to do themed illustrations for holidays. Last year, I made a Thanksgiving comic about Bradley imagining himself as my favorite football player, Peyton Manning. By the way, if you haven't seen that, it's still up on our Instagram, so check it out. This year, I missed Thanksgiving because we were super busy with launching our web shop at wobblytop.com and publishing King of the Cats on Black Friday, so I wanted to make sure I didn't miss Christmas as well. And I figured that since you guys have been so great and supportive of the King of the Cats and everyone's really seemed to like the videos, that rather than just making the holiday card, I'd show you guys the process. And while I'm here, I wanted to thank you guys so much. Jesse and I are so grateful. We've been really overwhelmed with all the love and support and stuff that we've gotten with the new book and the videos and the news articles and everything. And everyone who's liked and shared them and everything else, and how just like wonderful everyone at the schools we've been to has been. And, you know, it's been a really great month and an amazing way to close out the year. And it's all thanks to you guys, all the wonderful people we have in our corner. So thank you. It means a lot. Well, all right. So now that I feel all cheesy and silly, let me talk about the art. So far I've just been going through and filling in all the flat colors of the piece. So when you're doing watercolor, you try to hop around from area to area and making sure you don't do two areas that are right next to each other that are different colors. So like right now I'm doing the gray of the cat. I had to wait until the red of Bradley's Santa suit was dry. Otherwise, the red would have run into the gray color and vice versa, and then I would end up with a muddy, weird mixture that obviously I do not want. For this illustration, I forgot to mention, I said it, but it's a watercolor illustration. I am using my Winsor & Newton Cotman watercolors, which, while they are technically a student grade paint, are really fantastic anyway, and I haven't seemed to mind that they are student grade. By the way, the difference between a student grade paint and an artist grade paint is that student grade paints tend to use either lower quality pigments or multiple pigment mixtures, whereas artist quality paints have better pigments and ideally a single pigment in every color. And that means that there's only like one mineral or like different ground up particle in it to give that paint that color. And I am using, for brushes, my Raphael Kolinsky sable brushes. A Kolinsky sable is a special type of Russian sable. A sable is an animal like a ferret or a mink. And these watercolor brushes are made of the tail hairs from the tip of the tail of the male sable. And they're especially highly valued for their ability to not only hold a lot of water, but come to a really sharp, fine point. And that's what allows me to get all these like fine and delicate lines that you're seeing here. Whereas with a synthetic brush, while a lot of them are really nice, you're never going to get quite that perfect point that you get with a sable brush. So what I'm doing right now, like I said, is I'm going in and reinforcing all the lines from my drawing. After I fill in the flat color, I like to do this before I add any shading, and that helps me to make sure I don't lose track of the lines in the drawing. As you guys can see, because I keep poking my head into the frame when we're more zoomed out, I need glasses, and so a lot of the time if I put my shading in, I'll totally lose track of the lines from my transferred drawing. And especially on pieces where there are a lot of little details, that's pretty terrible, and I end up making a lot of things up. And then when I look back at the original drawing, I'm like, oh man, I wish that I hadn't lost that line or hadn't changed this that way. Sometimes it works out well and you end up with something better than you had in the first place, but a lot of the time it is to my detriment. So instead of losing those lines, I go in while I can still see them and put the watercolor on to make sure I keep track of them. You do run the risk of the watercolor reactivating and you get the dark color mixed in with your lighter color when you go back and shade, like the lines are a darker color than the shading would be necessarily. And what reactivating means is when you go back over dried watercolor with wet paint or water again, sometimes it can reactivate the paint. So that means the paint will re-wet and it will blur the line and the color will mix. But I found that I do better off running that risk and kind of trying to compensate for it than if I just try to do the whole painting and do the line work at the end. Because like I said before, I lose track of my drawing a lot and I don't like it when that happens. So now that I've got all my line work in, I am going through and adding the shading to all the different areas. As you can see, the bow right there is the bow in Bradley's Santa suit. I knew I wanted, they're both red. I knew that I wanted to have a red and green present, and Santa Claus's suit is obviously red. And so I knew that I was going to run into the problem with a red bow right next to a red sleeve. So I made sure that the red of Bradley's Santa suit was a cooler toned red than the red of the bow. So what that means is the red of the suit is more towards like a blue purple and the red of the bow is more towards a kind of orangey color. So they stand out from each other. Now, as you can see, we just jumped forward in time a little bit. I unfortunately forgot to hit record while I was doing the background, but I'll just explain it really fast. So what I did was I covered that circle behind Bradley, the cat and the mouse, in clear, clean water. And then I took 2 different yellows and I dropped the paint in different spots. And this is one of the many watercolor wet on wet techniques. And so what that means is you're using wet paint on wet paper. And you can get really pretty glowy kind of naturalistic effects because the watercolor paint will just swirl in to itself through the wet water and it'll move around in really nice ways. And you can kind of direct where it goes based on where the paper is wet and where it's not. And I wanted to get this really kind of like glowy, like candlelit effect for the background. And I thought that would be the best way to achieve it. I'm really happy with how it turned out. Now I'm going through and putting the green in for a little holiday greeting. And making sure, I got a little bit of that yellow in there, so I'm trying to make sure the paint's opaque enough to cover it. Because those wet on wet techniques, while they're gorgeous, they can be messy. And now I am signing our little Christmas card, Love Wobbly Top. And like I said at the beginning of the video, we really do love you guys. You've all been so fantastic and supportive, and we really, really appreciate it. We could not be doing any of this without your guys' support. So I'm going through and putting in those lines again. I'm trying to keep the line weight so that we have a heavier line on one side of the letters to give them a little bit of dimension to help them pop out from the paper. And now I'm going over the letters with this really, really gorgeous iridescent gold watercolor. I don't know if you guys saw earlier, but I had also put it on the bow on Bradley's Christmas present. Unfortunately, it didn't translate that well on film, but in person, it's really, really like glittery and pretty and iridescent, and I thought it was super festive, so I definitely wanted to use it for this illustration. Right now, I'm going back through with red on the outside of the letters, only on one side of each letter, or like the plane of each letter, so the left side of both vertical sticks on the H's, for instance, to make sure that, to give them a little dimension so they pop out of the paper, make them a little 3D. And oh, now you can really see that gold. I went through and I did kind of highlight accents on the letters, and I was really happy. It showed up much better on film that way, so you guys can really see it. And I was obviously really loving that gold because I went around the circle with a mix of the gold and yellow ochre. And then we're coming up to the end where I'm just adding some last highlights with my white gel pen. And yeah, that's about it for this illustration, guys. I hope you liked it. Happy holidays to everyone. Spend it with your family. I hope you have a great holiday. I'm about to go watch Scrooged with Jesse, so I will talk to you guys later. Have a great holiday once again. Bye, guys.